Can the defendant please stand? The Crown is charging you with the following offences. Can you enter your pleading? On the charge of stalking, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
On the charge of abduction, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
On the charge of murder, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
Defendant, please stand down. As the jury, you are required to listen carefully to the case presented by the prosecution and defence. I will then explain the law that you have to apply to then find a verdict of guilty or not guilty. Your decision must be a level beyond all reasonable doubt. The prosecution will now outline the case to you.
Members of the jury, I appear for the prosecution in this trial, and my learned friend, Miss Lane, appears for the defendant, Mr. Brady. I will now take this opportunity to explain to you what the prosecution knows this case is about. Miss Jessica Jones, the victim, works alongside the defendant, Mr. Mark Brady. They were acquainted colleagues and nothing more. Jessica Jones, on the 15th of November, came to Luton Police Station to report stalking and harassment following a series of silent, no-caller ID phone calls during the middle of the night, which continued for many days. She had also noticed a silver Vauxhall Corsa following behind her personal vehicle and was always near her, which led her to believe she was being stalked. We now know this stalker to be Mark Brady. PC Gryphon will take the stand today to explain to you what happened at the police station. Mark Brady is going to claim to you today that he loved Jess and he wanted her to be with him. These thoughts led him to murder Jess Jones' partner, Patrick Hughes, on December 22nd at his flat in Luton. The police was alerted by Alice Brown, a neighbour, who will be giving her evidence today after she heard the sounds of chaos and fighting and decided to call the police. She sensed violence and danger and did what any decent human being would do. D.I. Gordon took to the scene with his team and led the search of the flat, cabin, and later he led the search of Mark's bungalow. He will take the stand 3 times today to give you sufficient evidence. Forensics searched the flat along with D.I. Gordon and will report to you the findings of Mark's DNA. At the flat, Mark Brady fatally injured Patrick Hughes in his living room. He then later died in hospital. Jess was regularly visiting him in hospital in order to cherish the time she had left with him. However, upon leaving the hospital on the evening of the 30th of December, she was maliciously abducted by Mr. Mark Brady. Miss Jones was taken to an isolated cabin where Mark had prepared and premeditated to hold her against her will. Miss Jones was held in the cabin by Mr. Brady for many days and given sedative drinks by Mark to try and keep her calm. He was sexually and romantically interested in Jess, which she did not reciprocate to him, and he did not like no as an answer. Every day we kept Jess in the cabin, her trauma and mental suffering worsened. However, Miss Jones planned her escape. She found a screwdriver and hid it whilst he was out getting food. The next time he tried to commit romantic or sexual acts with Jess, she lodged the screwdriver in his back and ran for her life. The cabin was searched and forensic evidence with both Mark and Jess's DNA has come to light. After the search of the cabin, Mark's bungalow where he resides was found. This was searched by D.I. Gordon and his team, where some of Jess's belongings, photographs of her, and her daily routine written down were all found under Mark's possession. The defence will try and tell you today that Mark was insane, that he had no control over his actions, that he was mentally blind in the crimes he ended up committing. I have a trustworthy medical expert witness, Dr. Hastings, who will explain to you how Mark was able to premeditate his crime and fully understand what he was doing, showing to you, the jury, how Mr. Mark Brady was of sound mind throughout the crimes he committed, these hideous crimes. He had no concern for the physical and emotional suffering he inflicted on others, just concern for himself in his sane mind. I would now like to take this opportunity to remind you of the burden of proof. The Crown brings this case against the defendant and it's for the Crown to prove it. We will satisfy you so that you are sure Mr. Brady is guilty and nothing less will suffice. Mr. Brady is charged with the stalking of Miss Jessica Jones, the murder of Patrick Hughes and the abduction of Miss Jessica Jones. You need to decide if Mr. Brady was of sound mind and aware of his actions, if Mr. Brady did stalk and abduct Miss Jones, and if Mr. Brady murdered Patrick Hughes. From the evidence that will be shown in court today, you should come to a fair and just decision of guilty or not guilty.
Prosecution, could you call your first witness?
Prosecution calls PC Grayson. State to the jury your full name and job title.
I am PC Dick Grayson.
Can you tell us why Jess came to the police station?
Jess came to the police station to report stalking and harassment.
Please describe what Jess told you in her police report.
Jess said that she was scared and alarmed that a man had been suspiciously following her, which included driving behind her constantly, following her on the street, leaving harassing phone calls with no caller ID, and appearing outside her house.
Did she seem distressed or anxious to you?
Yes, she did.
The phone calls she described, did they match her mobile phone log?
Yes, I looked at her phone log and the numbers matched the times.
How did Miss Jones describe her suspected stalker?
Jess said that the man wore a black New York Yankees logo baseball cap with aviator sunglasses.
Did she give you details on the car?
Yes, she said that it was a silver Vauxhall Corsa with the number plate MB02GYU.
Have you traced the vehicle to any owner?
We traced the car but could not find any registered owner.
Please describe your next process after the report.
I opened the case with the number 3409 and forwarded it on to my superintendent, Jim Gordon.
Do you confidently believe that you did what you could to help Jess?
Yes, I do.
No further questions, Your Honour.
Defence, are there any questions for the witness?
Yes, there are. What state was Jess in when she claimed she was being stalked?
Scared and alarmed.
Would you say she was stressed?
Yes.
When Jess gave you the registration of the car, how did you know it was the correct one?
She had provided me with photos taken on her phone.
What times in the morning would Jess be called?
3 a.m, 4 a.m, and 5 a.m.
Can we both agree Jess was mentally unstable and stressed?
Yes.
As Jess was stressed and mentally unstable, how did you know she was stable enough to take the right photo of the registration?
She had told me that they had the right photos taken.
Could we say that the phone calls made her so panicked and paranoid that she created an illusion of someone stalking her?
No, I don't think that.
Do police officers protect the public?
Yes.
If Jess was feeling stressed and thought her life was in danger, why did you, as a police officer, think it was a good idea to not give her protection or monitor her home?
Objection, relevance.
No further questions, Your Honour.
Witness, you may stand down. Prosecution, could you call your next witness?
Prosecution calls Alice Brown. Can you confirm that you live next door to flat 12B of Digby Street?
Yes, I do.
Who lives in the neighbouring flat to you?
Patrick Hughes.
Could you please tell us the noises you heard coming from your neighbour's house?
It sounded like furniture being tossed around, like a fight.
Were the noises easy to hear from inside your house?
They were muffled but distinctive.
The voices you heard, did they seem angry or like they wanted to hurt one another?
Yes.
What made you decide to dial 999?
I thought someone could be in danger.
No further questions, Your Honour.
Defence, are there any questions for the witness?
Yes, there are. What kind of person would you say you are?
Well, I would say I'm an okay person. I called the police after all.
Would you help a friend in need or somebody who needed help?
Of course I would.
Do you have a friendship with your neighbour Patrick Hughes?
Yeah. No, we're only acquaintances.
Did you know him personally?
No, I did not.
Where were you in the flat when you called 999?
I was just in my living room.
You said you would help someone who needed it. When Patrick Hughes was under attack, why did you not help a man in need?
Well, I thought I could be in danger if I also entered the flat.
If you were under attack, wouldn't you want someone to help you?
Of course I would.
Did you see the attacker?
No, but I saw an unusual car parked outside.
Do you know someone named Mark Brady?
No, I do not.
Can you confirm or deny that you know who the attacker was?
I did not know who the attacker was at the time.
No further questions, Your Honour.
Witness, you may stand down. Prosecution, could you call your next witness?
Prosecution calls Detective Gordon. State your full name and job title to the jury.
James Gordon, Chief Superintendent of Luton Constabulary.
Please confirm who called to tell you about the noises being heard from the flat.
Alice Brown,
Can you recall the address of the incident reported by Miss Brown?
12B Digby Street.
And who did you attend the flat with?
My team of officers including PC Grayson.
How did you gain entry to the building?
The door was unlocked.
What did the flat look like when you arrived?
It was evident that a fight had taken place. There's furniture everywhere and the place looked a mess.
Can you please tell us what state Jess's boyfriend was in when you found him?
He was lying on the floor on his back with a gash in his stomach.
Was he unresponsive?
Yes, he was unconscious.
Did you get forensics into the building, and if so, what did they find?
They found fingerprints on the door frame, traces of hair on the floor, and fingerprints on the kitchen window.
How do you believe the defendant left the premises?
Through the kitchen window.
What was the registration number the witness gave you for the silver Vauxhall?
MB02GYU.
Where did you find the car after your search and tracing?
A nearby woodland area.
Can you tell us what you found in the vehicle once it had been searched?
The knife used by Mark, and the cap that Jess reported Mark wearing, and the prescription drugs that he had not been taking.
Did you have forensics within the car?
Yes, we did.
What did the forensics report show?
The forensics report showed that traces of blood on the blade belonging to Patrick, and fingerprints on the handle of the weapon.
Did the fingerprints match those of Mark Brady's?
Yes, they did.
Do you believe that your search was proper and thorough to high police standards?
I know it was.
No further questions, Your Honour.
Defence, are there any questions for the witness?
Yes, there are. In your statement, you claim the door was unlocked. Is this correct?
This is correct.
Was the door damaged in any way?
No.
Was there any sign of breaking entrance?
No.
Could you say the victim could have let the attacker in?
That wasn't possible.
In your report, you claim that you found Mark's hair in the flat. Whereabouts?
On the floor outside the kitchen.
Where did you think the attack took place?
We believe the attack took place in the living room.
Did you find Mark's DNA in the living room?
Forensics was not conducted there.
Where did you find Mark's fingerprints?
On the kitchen window.
You claim that you found no DNA in the living room, but Mark and Patrick Hughes allegedly had an altercation. Is this correct?
Correct.
Don't you think it's strange that you found no DNA in the living room?
Not at all. Forensics was not conducted there.
Were forensics even arranged to take place?
No.
How can you claim to the prosecution that you, and I quote, know you conducted a proper and thorough search when you failed to provide forensics in the room where a murder allegedly took place?
After years of law enforcement experience, I am confident I can tell the difference between a poorly conducted search and a thorough search.
How can Alice Brown be a reliable source when referencing the registration of the car, considering she was in a flat building which could have distorted her vision, causing her to recall the wrong numbers?
Alice Brown was able to recall the exact same registration number as Jess gave us.
No further questions, Your Honour.
Witness, can you remain for questions from the prosecution?
The next set of questioning for the detective is about his search of the cabin following Jess's escape to safety after Mr. Brady abducted her. Please explain to the jury how you located the cabin.
Jess was in the patrol car with us. She showed us where she'd been abducted.
What did you find upon arrival at the cabin?
There were clothes and objects on the floor, and the place looked a mess.
What state was Mark in at the scene?
He was on the floor, on his front, with a screwdriver in his back.
When did you call forensics?
Immediately after we called an ambulance for Mark.
Can you please recall all that forensics discovered in the cabin?
We found Mark's DNA on the female clothing.
Can you confirm to the jury if Mark Brady's DNA was on Jess Jones' clothing found within the cabin?
I can confirm.
No further questions, Your Honour.
Defence, are there any questions for the witness?
Yes, there are. So, you found Mark's DNA on the female clothing, correct?
Correct.
What about Jess's DNA? In your statement, there is no mention of any of her DNA being found on the clothing items. Therefore, these clothes could have belonged to anyone.
We knew that Mark was obsessed with Jess. It's unlikely his female clothing belonged to anyone else.
Without her DNA on the clothes, how can you be so sure there was an interaction or touching?
You fail to see the possibility that the incident may have taken place without them wearing clothes at all.
It is, in your opinion, Jess was kidnapped from the hospital, correct?
Correct.
Would Jess not have been wearing clothes then, meaning her DNA would be on the clothing found?
Yes, she would have had them at some point.
No further questions, Your Honour.
Witness, you may stand down. Prosecution, could you call your next witness?
Prosecution calls Jess Jones. Please explain to the jury where you were when you were put in the boot of Mark Brady's car.
I was coming out of the hospital after visiting my boyfriend.
Were you able to fight against the defendant as he took you to his personal vehicle?
No, he attacked me behind.
What happened when he got you to his car?
He grabbed me and put me into his boot.
Can you describe your feelings as you were being abducted?
I was scared for my life.
How long do you estimate you were in the car for?
Around 10 to half an hour.
Where were you when you got out of the car?
I was in the woods.
Was the car you saw when you got out of the vehicle the same one that you believe to have been stalking you in previous weeks?
Yes.
Can you please describe the man that let you out of the car and into the cabin?
He had blonde hair and blue eyes.
Can you confirm to the jury that the man sat in the dock today is the same man that abducted you?
Yes.
Please recall what Mr. Brady said to you upon arrival at the cabin.
He said that I'm going to be his forever.
What do you believe to have been in the drinks that Mr. Brady was giving you over your captivation at the cabin?
He was drugging me because I kept on falling asleep very early.
How did you avoid sedation from the drinks?
I started to realise what was happening to me and I spit it out when he wasn't looking.
Please tell the jury the sort of things that Mark would say to you at your time at the cabin.
He said that he loved me and that I can't be anyone else's but his.
Did Mr. Brady ever touch you inappropriately?
Yes.
Did you feel that you were threatened?
Yes.
Did Mark seem obsessed with you?
Yes.
Did you feel that trying to escape was a life-threatening risk you were willing to take?
Yes.
Explain the steps you took to plan your escape.
He would leave the house to get food and I knew there was a screwdriver in one of the drawers. So I planned to hide the screwdriver under my pillow and the next time he would attack me, I would stab him in the back with the screwdriver.
How long had Mark left the building for?
A half an hour.
Explain Mark's behaviour and mood when he had returned from the store.
He was upset.
Can you confirm that Mark began to harass you and you said no to being kissed?
Yes.
Please describe in detail what Mark was doing.
As he was upset, he came towards me and tried to kiss my neck and touch me inappropriately.
Did you feel that your life was at risk due to Mr. Brady's behaviour?
Yes.
What did you proceed to do in order to get Mark away from you?
I tried to push him, but it didn't stop him, so I stabbed him with the screwdriver.
Once you had used the keys to escape the cabin, where did you go?
I kept on running until I heard cars and a road ahead.
Since you have left the cabin, have you felt at risk knowing Mark is not serving prison time yet?
Yes.
Has Mr. Mark Brady's behaviour now begun to affect your day-to-day life?
Yes.
Is this due to the gross trauma he has inflicted upon you?
Yes.
Please describe to the jury how Mark's behaviour has taken effect on your personal life.
I now have to see therapy because I cannot be able to go out the house by myself and I'm frightened every time there's a phone call.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honour.
Defence, are there any questions for the witness?
Yes, there are. How would you describe the behaviour of your abductor?
He was very angry.
When the defendant left to get food on the day mentioned in your statement, was this the first time he left the cabin or did he leave frequently?
He would leave frequently.
How long was it before you planned and attempted to escape?
I planned once I knew I was off the drugs that he was giving me.
How many days was it before you actually managed to escape?
I can't recall.
When you were in the defendant's captivity, what feelings and thoughts were you experiencing?
I was scared
If you were so scared, why didn't you try and escape sooner?
because I was drugged.
But you said to prosecution you would spit out the drink with the drugs in.
Yeah, and once I realised I was drugged,
How did you come to the conclusion that Mark was obsessed with you?
he would stroke my hair and say that we're going to have a family together.
When he said he loved you, how did you react?
I was disgusted.
Did you like the fact that he was obsessed with you?
No, I didn't.
What made you think you needed to convince Mark that you loved him?
In order to escape,
What did you do exactly to make him think you loved him?
I said maybe he has a chance.
Isn't it true that this was your way of finally expressing your true feelings for him?
No, it wasn't. I just wanted to escape.
When you defended yourself, couldn't you have just let him come close to you anyway?
No,
You claim in your statement that he kissed you and touched you, even when you said no, So would he not have come close to you anyway, regardless of whether or not he thought you loved him?
Yes.
Isn't it true there really wasn't a need for you to let him know that you loved him?
I think it was in order to escape.
Do you not think telling someone who is allegedly obsessed with you could endanger you even more?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honour.
Witness, you may stand down. Prosecution, could you call your next witness?
Prosecution calls Detective Gordon. Gryphon will now be questioned. Gordon will now be questioned on the evidence taken from the defendant's home following his arrest at the cabin. How did you discover Mark's bungalow?
We extracted Mark's details after we arrested him.
How did you gain entry into the bungalow?
The door was kicked in professionally by one of my officers.
When searching the property, what did you discover?
We discovered a bird-watching notepad with Jess's daily routine, Jess's business cards, various photos of Jess, and a disposable camera in which we extracted 8 pictures of Jess on.
Were the photos you found definitely identified to be Miss Jessica Jones?
Yes.
Can you confirm that Jess's details written in the notepad are correct to Miss Jessica Jones' current details?
I can confirm.
Do the business cards definitely belong to Jess?
They did.
After years of law enforcement experience, do you believe this to be the behaviour of an obsessed stalker?
This was the behaviour of an obsessed stalker.
No further questions, Your Honour.
Defence, are there any questions for the witness?
Yes, there are. So, the bird-watching notepad you found, how did you know this was Mark's?
The notebook contained photos of Jess. We knew Mark was obsessed.
Was it specifically labelled property of Mark Brady?
No.
In the notepad you found Jess's routine, is this correct?
Correct.
How did you know this was specifically Jess's routine?
There were photos of Jess next to the routine, and we knew Mark was obsessed.
No further questions, Your Honour.
Witness, you may stand down. Prosecution, could you call your next witness?
Prosecution calls Dr. Hastings. Please state to the jury your full name and qualifications.
Dr. Hastings, PhD in Forensic Medicine.
What is your job title or description?
Forensic Medical Examiner for Luton Police Force.
How long have you been working for Luton Police Force as a forensic medical examiner?
About 7 years.
Please describe the basic points of what you discussed with Mark Brady during his examination.
What he recalled happened, how he felt before, during, after, why he did what he did, and what he understood of his actions and the consequences of them.
Did Mr. Brady know the nature and quality of his acts?
Yes, he did.
Did he understand fully that what he was doing was a criminal offence?
Yes, he fully understood.
Do you believe he truly understands the difference between right and wrong?
Yes, I know he does.
From your discussions, do you think he understands what takes place in a court and the roles of legal representatives and advocates?
Yes, he does.
Was he capable of entering a plea?
Yes, he was fully capable.
Was he able to give you full conversation and reliable evidence throughout your discussions?
Yes, he was able to give evidence clearly and gave independent answers.
Did Mark Brady have the mental capacity to premeditate his crimes?
Yes, I believe he did.
Do you understand the consequence? Did he understand the consequences his actions would have on others?
Yes, he fully understood all the consequences.
If this jury decided to find Mark Brady guilty of these charges, do you think the defendant would be suited to serve prison time?
Yes, he would be suited to serve his sentence in a prison.
Explain to the jury why he would not benefit from going to a mental institution.
His mild mental illnesses can be treated with prescription drugs.
From the evidence shown in court today, it has been shown that Mark was not taking his prescription medication to treat depression. Would Mark's behaviour have been any different if he had been taking these drugs?
There would be no difference to his personality or his behaviour, just his mood.
Do you believe Mark to have any undiagnosed illnesses?
During his sessions, he showed signs of mild bipolar disorder.
Would bipolar disorder cause someone to take extreme and violent actions towards others?
Not to the extent of symptoms Mark was showing.
For the charge of stalking, was Mark in a sane state of mind?
Yes.
For the charge of murder of Patrick, Jess's partner, was Mark in a sane state of mind?
Yes.
For the charge of abduction, was Mark in a sane state of mind?
Yes.
Can you confirm to the jury how you believe, in your medical expert opinion, the state of Mark Brady's mind to have been at the times that all these crimes were committed?
Same.
Would it be fair for the jury to find Mr. Mark Brady guilty on all charges?
Yes, in my medical opinion, I believe it would.
No further questions, Your Honour.
Defence, are there any questions for the witness?
There's no need for a cross-examination, Your Honour.
Witness, you may stand down. Defence, would you call your witness?
Defence calls Dr. Burrows. Can you please state your name and profession to the jury?
Steve Burrows, Doctor of Medicine.
How long have you worked as a doctor of medicine?
10 years.
Would you say you are well qualified?
Yes.
Mark Brady has been coming to you in regards to his mental health, is this correct?
Yes.
How long has Mr. Brady been coming to you?
4 years.
What illnesses of the mind have you diagnosed him with?
Depression, bipolar disorder, and low-level schizophrenia.
When did you diagnose him with these illnesses?
3 years ago.
Did you prescribe him with any medication?
Yes, antidepressants.
Having known Mark for a very long time and having a proper understanding of his mental state, do you think being off his medication would have affected his behaviour drastically?
Yes, very much so. Discontinuation of antidepressants can lead to a higher level of aggression. It can also cause mood swings and suicidal thoughts.
Were you aware Mark had begun drinking excessively?
No, I was not aware. Mr. Brady has not attended our scheduled fortnightly meetings 3 times in a row now.
Could this also have affected his mental stability?
Yes, increasing alcohol consumption makes it likely that negative emotions will take over, impacting mental stability.
Could you explain the effects of Mark's mental illnesses on his behaviour and the way he interacted with other people?
Depression may cause Mark to feel higher levels of agitation and restlessness. This would cause him to behave in an angry and impulsive manner. Low-level schizophrenia also affects Mark, causing disordered thinking and behaviour that impairs daily functioning.
Do you think these illnesses of the mind could have affected Mark's ability to perceive the nature and quality of his behaviour and actions?
Yes.
Do you think Mark's mental disorders would make it hard for him to tell right from wrong?
Yes.
In your professional medical opinion, do you think not being on his medication and frequently being under the influence of alcohol would cause him to not be of sound mind?
Yes.
Do you think Mark would cope and is stable enough to go to prison?
No, I do not.
Do you think rehabilitation in a mental institution may be helpful for Mark?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honour.
Prosecution, are there any questions for the witness?
Yes, there are. Do you think rehabilitation can cure cold-hearted, pure evil?
No.
You mentioned in previous questioning that you didn't know Mark to be drinking excessively. How did you not realise this in the years of seeing him?
He was not drinking when I was with him.
If you know him so well, as the defence has stated, did you never pick up visible signs of alcoholism?
He did not show any signs as I did not see him drink.
Have you come to the conclusion that drinking impacted Mr. Brady's crimes on the stand today?
Yes.
How can you make such a quick and snap decision on Mark's behaviour, having only learnt this information a moment ago?
Increasing alcohol consumption makes it more likely that negative emotions will take over, which impact mental stability.
Why do you believe Mr. Brady to have not committed previous crimes if he has had these issues for years?
He has not formed an attachment like this before.
Would it be fair to say that as these illnesses have been present for years, this obsessive behaviour would have been displayed before?
Yes, but it's never been this strong of an attachment before.
No further questions, Your Honour.
Witness, you may stand down. Does prosecution or defence wish to call the defendant?
Defence calls Mark Brady. How did you know Jessica Jones?
I knew her through work.
Did you ever interact with her?
She made me coffee once or twice.
When you started stalking her, what were your thoughts?
I thought I had to get close with her and hopefully form a friendship with her.
Do you think she was enjoying the time you spent with her?
Yeah, I'd say she was.
How did you know where she would be? Did you follow her after work?
Yes, I did.
Why did you repeatedly call her?
Well, she didn't pick up, so I thought if I called her, she'd eventually pick up.
What did you think you would get from these phone calls?
Well, she might offer to make me more coffee and then we could talk more.
How did you know where her boyfriend lived?
I followed them both.
When they were together, how does this make you feel?
Jealous.
What other feelings did you experience? Did you feel angry?
Yes.
What state were you in when you entered the home of Patrick Hughes?
Well, I just knew I had to get him before he got me, really.
When you were in the flat, what were you thinking?
I just had to find him and make sure he was out of the picture.
Did you know what you were doing?
Not really. One moment I had a knife in my hand, the other I was out of the window.
When you left the house and you had the knife in your hand, what were you thinking?
I didn't really think, I just was relieved I was one step closer to Jess.
When you saw Jess visiting her boyfriend, how did this make you feel?
Again, very, very jealous.
What made you decide to kidnap Jess?
I really say I'd kidnap her, I just wanted to get close to her.
Why did you take her to a cabin in the woods?
So we could be alone and no distractions.
Why did you continually sedate her?
I didn't really sedate her, but I did try and not let her leave.
How did you see the relationship between you and Jessica Jones?
I saw it developing and it was going places.
Did you ever intend on hurting her?
No.
No further questions, Your Honour.
Prosecution, are there any questions for the defendant?
Yes, there are. What were you doing on the 22nd of November 2020?
I don't know, it was probably at home or something.
Is abduction defined as taking someone away from their home against their will?
Probably, I'm not sure.
What were you doing on the 30th of December 2020?
I was probably working at work, I guess.
Is murder a crime?
I guess so, yeah.
What were you doing on the 3rd of January 2021?
I don't know, at home or at work, I don't know.
What car do you drive?
I don't know, it's just a car, isn't it?
Where do you work?
At this office.
How long have you worked there?
I'd say a few years.
How many sick days do you think you've had in the past 6 months?
Not many.
So are you able to go into work most days you are expected to?
I'd say so, yeah.
Do you have friendships formed from work or elsewhere?
I have a few, but Jess is the main one.
You seem quite competent at recalling pieces of information. Is that fair to say?
Yes, so.
You don't seem forgetful either. Is that fair to say?
But, yeah.
You also seem more than capable of holding down a job and functioning in a routine. Is that correct?
It has its moments, yeah.
Are you able to keep in touch with the friends you have elsewhere?
Yeah, I'd say I do.
If you understand how friendships work usually, why did you begin to stalk Jess Jones to try and build a friendship?
I wouldn't really say I stalked her, I just followed her.
Can you understand that someone seeing a car constantly following a lone woman would be seen as threatening and dangerous?
No, not really.
Why did you put Jess Jones in this position of threat and danger?
I wouldn't really say I was pressing her.
Do you understand that abduction is a serious offence?
To some extent, yeah.
When answering previous questioning about your crimes against Patrick Hughes, you said, "I knew I had to get him before he got me." What gave you the idea that he was going to get you?
I don't know, I just thought he would hurt me.
So you were fully able to feel and know he was going to get you?
Yes.
Would it be fair for anyone in this courtroom to injure and kill the person sat next to them?
I don't know, if there was a reason or something.
Why did you carry out the same actions against Patrick Hughes on the 22nd of December?
I don't know.
Are you fully aware that stabbing someone under any circumstances except in legal warfare is a crime?
Yes.
Can you explain to the jury how the knife you used to kill Patrick Hughes along with your clothing ended up in your car, which was later found near a woodland area?
I don't know, I didn't really kill him.
You mentioned earlier that you acted violently towards Patrick in a haze and the knife was in your hands. How did this happen?
I don't know, I wasn't really thinking.
If I was to approach your barrister from behind and put her in the boot of my car, would you say that this is an appropriate legal and moral action to take?
I guess, maybe.
Why did you carry out the same actions against Miss Jessica Jones on the 30th of December?
I don't think I did.
You continued to keep Jess in the cabin when she showed clear and visible signs of not wanting to be there at all. Why?
She didn't really show any signs.
Is this usually how one individual shows love to another, by taking them somewhere they don't want to go?
Well, yes, I guess.
When Jess said no to being with you or committing sexual acts with you, how did you feel?
Bit angry.
Do you believe anger or sadness is an excuse to continue to harass someone and make them feel severely uncomfortable?
I guess so, yeah.
Would you feel threatened if someone were to touch you in ways you were not comfortable with?
Maybe.
Why did you do this to Jess Jones then?
I don't think I did.
How long did you intend to keep Jess Jones held captive against her will?
Well, I guess as long as it took for her to love me.
So you did keep her captive against her will.
I wouldn't say it was that.
When did you decide you would kidnap Miss Jones on the 30th of December?
I wouldn't say I kidnapped her, but I wanted to be with her soon.
How did you know she would be visiting the hospital on this specific day?
Well, she usually went in on that day a week, so I'd keep an eye and I'd follow her.
Do you own the woodland cabin you were found injured in by Detective Gordon?
Yes.
How long have you owned the cabin?
Again, a few years.
Do you believe your demeanour to have been specifically different on the day Jess made her escape?
I don't know.
Can you recall what happened in the police station following your hospital treatment and arrest?
I can't really remember. It was just me getting interrogated, I guess.
You have displayed in your answers that Jess Jones made you feel angry as well as sad and made you want to keep her captive. Did your thoughts and feelings bring you to commit the heinous crimes you did?
No, I don't think so.
Currently, whilst on the stand, do you feel any remorse for the way you tried to get Miss Jones to love you?
No.
Finally, to be clear to the jury, you, Mark Brady, killed Patrick Hughes and kidnapped Jessica Jones for your own self-interest and ego.
No, I did not.
No further questions, Your Honour.
Defendant, you may stand down.
Members of the jury, now I'm going to sum up to you the points of the case and how Mark Brady's heinous acts have led to gross trauma and death, showing you why Mr. Brady must be found guilty. Mr. Brady took Patrick Hughes' life out of pure evil and malicious intent to kill. He wanted to rid the world of Mr. Hughes in order to reach his stone-cold heart out to Jess. Jess showed no interest in Mark Brady, not expressing any need or want for a relationship in the workplace or elsewhere. He stalked and harassed Jess for weeks, making her on edge at all times and feeling that her life was at threat. Mr. Brady then premeditated his crimes to abduct Miss Jones on the 30th of December 2020. He planned and executed his crimes in a sinister and barbaric manner of which he should suffer the full consequences for. The defence has run with insanity, which was flawed performance at best. My medical expert witness has shown to you through her years of expertise that Mr. Brady was of complete sound mind when he was committing the crimes he did. He was able to give Dr. Hastings independent and confident answers throughout her examination, which has led to her decision to diagnose Mr. Brady as sane. Mr. Brady is a ruthless man with self-interest and ego at heart. Mark's fingerprints are all over the crime scene, throughout the flats, the cabin and the bungalow, as well as even being on the handle of the knife smothered in Patrick Hughes' blood. His careless behaviour led to Luton Police Force to find this forensic evidence against him, showing he murdered Patrick and fled in his silver Vauxhall. Forensic evidence also proves his abduction of Jess Jones in the isolated cabin he had prepared, when he gave her sedatives in order to try and make Jess participate in sexual and romantic acts. The Crown asked the jury to reject the defence's theories of the case. It is a mere mistaken defence, and Mr. Brady cannot get off on insanity as he does not fit the McNaughton rules. He knew the nature and quality of his acts. He knew his actions were wrong. Brady does not lack substantial capacity to know or appreciate that his conducts were wrong, as you can see from his questioning. He knew what he was physically doing and how it was going to affect others. We all know he was perfectly able to premeditate his crimes, as he has had these issues for 4 years and never acted in such a foul demeanour previously. Defence's medical witness has weak and unreliable evidence for the defendant. He learnt new information on the stand today about Mark's excessive drinking that defence has provided no evidence to back up these statements. The doctor made rash and quick comments on this information, which is unreliable, with no further studies on the defendant about his theorised alcoholism. My medical expert witness discredits all Mr. Burrows has said. Mark Brady could recall information on the stand to me today. He even admitted he had the ability to feel and know that that Patrick was a threat to him. Those who are insane do not have the ability to feel and know, showing to everyone in this room today that he was sane, a sane threat to society. I ask you to morally find Mark Brady guilty on all charges, for your own safety, for the safety of your peers and those unfortunate enough to meet Mark. Jess Jones deserves justice. She deserves her life back, to know that Mark is suffering the consequences of what he has done. He has teared an innocent girl's life apart, and she deserves justice, and only you can serve this.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it has been a pleasure appearing before you in this important case. I, as defence, appreciate your attention throughout this trial and thank you for listening to both arguments equally, as you, as a jury, are expected to do. In the case before you, the prosecution has presented insufficient evidence to convict, and therefore we ask you to return a not guilty verdict. Doubts arose when cross-examining Detective Jim Gordon. Mr. Gordon and his team could not be bothered to take time to conduct search into a location where an alleged attack, which resulted in murder, took place. I would now like to review the legal standard for insanity. The standard is, did the mental illness affect the defendant's ability to perceive the nature and quality of his actions, or was he unable to tell the difference between right and wrong? The evidence is such that you must answer this in the affirmative. This result is compelled not only by the science of psychiatry, but also by simple common sense. But first, let's talk about psychiatry. Dr. Hastings and Dr. Burrows both agreed Mark suffers from bipolar disorder. However, Dr. Hastings would like to claim that Mark was of sound mind when committing the crimes in question. Though she is a medical expert, this is just her opinion that was formulated after spending no more than an hour or two with Mr. Brady. Dr. Burrows, however, has suggested opposite to the prosecution's witness, concluding that frequently being under the influence of alcohol and being off his medication would cause Mark to act in a manner to which is not of sound mind, therefore insinuating Mark was insane. Now, I don't know about you, but I would trust this opinion considering Dr. Burrows has been consulting and treating Mark for 4 years, so knows his mental state through and through. Furthermore, I feel light needs to be brought on Mark's diagnosed schizophrenia. This was diagnosed 3 years ago, along with bipolar disorder. This is agreed. This was not something he cooked up after the fact because it was convenient, or that he was coached into claiming. This is the simple truth of the matter. It is the simple cold hard fact of this case. We saw these disorders when Mark believed fate brought him and Jess together. We see them when he believed Patrick Hughes was going to get him. And we saw them when he left a flat building with a bloody knife in his hand, clueless as to what had happened. We also saw them on December 30th, didn't we? When Mark abducted Miss Jessica Jones because he genuinely believed she wanted to be with him forever. It is evident Mark Brady has a disease of the mind. This is what guided us to run the defence of insanity, because Mark Brady is that of an insane man. My client is sick, and it is hard for me to say that, but he is sick. Sick with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. We do not put sick people in prison, we put them in hospital, and that is where he belongs. In a mental hospital where he can receive the proper attention and rehabilitation he needs.
Now, as the jury, you must decide whether the defendant is guilty or not guilty by reason of insanity. You can only find the defendant insane if you find beyond all reasonable doubt that at the time of the offences, the defendant was suffering from a defect of reason. This cannot be only a defect at a particular time, it must be a permanent defect of reason. You must also find that the defendant has a disease of mind. This must be caused by an internal factor only. You must also find that at the time of the offences, he did not know what he was doing was wrong, and that it was illegally wrong. If you, jury, find that the defendant fulfills the definition of insanity, then you must return a special verdict of not guilty by reason of insanity. Whatever verdict you render must be unanimous. That is, each and every person on this jury must agree with the verdict. Can the foreman please stand and tell the court if the jury has reached a verdict you all agree on?
Yes, we have reached a verdict.
On charge 1, stalking, do you find defendant guilty or not guilty by reason of insanity?
Guilty.
On charge 2, abduction, do you find the defendant guilty or not guilty by reason of insanity?
Guilty.
On charge 3, murder, do you find defendant guilty or not guilty by reason of insanity?
Not guilty by reason of insanity.
For the murder of Patrick Hughes, I sentence you, Mark Brady, to be placed into a mental institution indefinitely. Please take him down.